What is up, YouTube? Welcome to another Call on Tyrone. I'm here with Mr. Anthony
Totri.
Totri.
There you
Anthony
go.
Totri from ABC 57 in covers Notre Dame. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. College football season is it's proven to be quite interesting this year so far.
Yeah, being the Georgia fan, this has been the funnest year of my life. No upsets, no nothing, just straight domination. So hopefully we continue that. But I'm here to cover the little brother. Of course. Georgia Tech plays Notre Dame in Notre Dame this week. Last year they lost, of course. This year they're 3-7, probably expecting another loss, but we never know with this team because they won some games. They really, at this point, Georgia Tech could have been 4-7 because they should have beat Clemson. But I think it was an unexpected Pitt team they played because if you go back to my pre Georgia Tech thing, I was like, they should beat Pitt. They should be, I was thinking they should have team Virginia Tech. Those teams they should have beat. The ACC has been fun this year, really truly.
Oh yeah.
So for you, what has been your assessment of Georgia Tech and just the ACC in general this year?
So I'll start with the ACC. I think everybody kind of going in was expecting, Clemson with DJ to come back and be the team yet again, not miss a beat without Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. Clemson's fallen off. Kind of surprising this year. Wake Forest obviously had a really solid run. They got upset a couple weeks ago. UNC has looked good at times, right? You got Howell, who's going to be a future NFL quarterback. So it's been weird. The ACC, not as good as the Big Ten, but I feel like they've eaten themselves alive the same way the Big Ten tends to do. And then when you look at Georgia Tech, I feel like, you saw them last week, definitely capable of putting up some points on offense. But I feel like this has been a year for them to really figure out who they're going to be moving forward, right? You've got the young quarterback. The defense really hasn't lived up or played to its potential. So I feel like this has been a year for Georgia Tech to kind of figure themselves out for what's to come.
Yeah, looking at the close game, like if you look at the games Georgia Tech, like you just go through the schedule. That first loss to Northern Illinois was just ridiculous. Let's be honest. That was probably the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Then you get Kennesaw State, which you should be, which you should have been 2-0 to start the season. Should have been 2-0, but you going 1-1 versus Clemson. You almost beat Clemson, which shows you have talent. Which shows you
Yep.
could, even if Clemson isn't, Clemson's defense really held Georgia to 10 points, and Georgia really a field goal.
Yeah.
So Clemson's defense wasn't bad. It's just all around. You put up a touchdown. You scored. You literally should have won that game.
Yeah.
And then if you didn't, mess up, it got like 1 second left and missed. So then you go and kill UNC. You beat them about 45-22. You get Pitt next week, and then that game was discussed. That was a horrible game. Just this adult. Watching the highlights of the Georgia Tech game was just bad. Like you're just like, God, what happened? Like, what did you do? And then you get Duke. You should beat Duke. That was still a closer game than it should have been. You go 40. You put up 40 points with Virginia. You really have a shootout with Virginia, and the end you lose 48-40. You have a great game versus Virginia Tech. That's a tougher game. Miami, you lose by a field goal. And then Boston College, you lose by 11. Going into these next 2 weeks for Georgia Tech, you better hope you can, nobody's going to beat Notre Dame. The only team to beat Notre Dame was Cincy. And let's be honest, Cincy is just a good team. They're not going to get the respect of it, but they're a really good team.
Yeah.
And then you go from Notre Dame and then you go straight to Georgia. So if you're Georgia Tech, it's just like, these are 2 weeks where you have to look at your depth of your roster and be like, and this is on GR. This is on GR calling. And I've called him out all year. And I called him out really when he lost Northern Illinois. You as a head coach how do you? First of all, you come in week one and lose to. Well, they are D1, but match. You lose to a school that plays in the MAC. And then you go in and you beat Kennesaw State. We all knew you was going to beat Kennesaw State. And I thought they might have lost to Kennesaw State just because Kennesaw State is not that good. They're right now. They're right D2, so they're not bad. But you get to now, you get into your ACC play. You get Clemson. You play them tough. And I'm like, okay, they're going to have a great season in the ACC because the ACC isn't that good this year. And then you lose these games. I'm just like, man, you gotta. How are they not prepared? Like some games, some weeks, you're just like, this team doesn't look prepared to play football. You're just like, how? As a coach, and and they can't get rid of him. As a Georgia Tech fan told me, his contract is structured. If he gets cut in the first 4 years, they had to pay him his whole contract. So I was just like, yeah, that's gonna be This is his recruit year. This is 4 years now. Now this is your 4th year. Like these should be all your recruits.
I feel like they have played up and down to their competition, which is going to be interesting for these next 2 weeks, right? Because you've got 2 top 10 teams. You obviously got Georgia next week. You got the in-state rivalry. You got all that going next week. Nobody expects Georgia Tech to beat Georgia, but I mean, Coach Brian Kelly said it on Monday. Like this is a Georgia Tech team that plays up and down to its competition, and really these next 2 weeks are the Yellow Jackets bowl games, right? Like they have nothing to lose going into Notre Dame. They have nothing to lose playing Georgia. This is their time to play spoiler for these 2 teams, especially Notre Dame. Notre Dame is on the cusp, right? They need a lot to happen above them to make the college football playoff, assuming they beat Georgia Tech and Stanford. So a loss to Georgia Tech immediately ends any hope that they've got for a college football playoff spot. So this game is a perfect opportunity for Georgia Tech to salvage something, I feel like, from their season, right? You mentioned their record. You mentioned those close losses. This is a time where you can look back at the end of the season. And if Georgia Tech does find a way to beat Notre Dame, it is a perfect win that coach can hang, at the end of the season and be like, hey, it wasn't a great season, but guess what we did?
We beat Notre Dame. Yeah, like that's the only thing that they can ride on at this point. Is just like, man, if they could play upset, let's be honest. If they could play upset to any one of these teams, this is a big thing. Like we can pull upsets, if they can pull this upset, it's going to be. I mean, what do they have to play for? Like,
yeah.
With 3 and 7, I can see you like 5 and 5. You have like 5 of those seasons. It's just like, okay, yeah, we can maybe make a move. You don't have that opportunity.
No.
At this point, you just got to go all out and just go right to it. But going on to Notre Dame, you guys lose 9-1, which really and truly is. Really, I still don't know how you guys lost to Cincy. That game was just crazy.
Yeah.
But you play Cincinnati. Your only loss is to Cincinnati, and it's funny because it's a quality loss. Let's be honest, that is a quality loss. But to the college board, you lost to Cincinnati, who doesn't play anybody all year.
Yeah.
So you're at number 6 and number 9.
Number 8 in the playoff rankings, number 6 in the AP.
Okay, so you're number 8 right now. How do you feel? It's gonna take some time. You're gonna have to hope at this point that somebody loses in the time. Yeah. And that's the worst part about it, because you don't know. Like you really don't know. And next week, mostly everybody's playing. The only game I can think of in the next 2 weeks that is going to be that can maybe help y'all get in is if Alabama loses to Auburn.
So there's a couple scenarios that kind of work through. They'll need Georgia to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, because I don't think a 2-loss Alabama gets in over a 1-loss Notre Dame. So they'll need that to happen. They'll need the Big Ten to continue to just tear itself up with, Ohio State, Michigan State. They'll need to just continue to beat each other. And they will most certainly need Oregon to blow the game against Utah, or they'll need to blow the Pac-12 championship. If that happens, right, because I don't think – there's no way a 2-loss Oregon team gets in. There's no way that a 2-loss Alabama gets in over a 1-loss Notre Dame, right? And you figure over the next couple of weeks, Michigan State, Ohio State, they're going to all beat each other up to where 2 of them will have at least 2 losses. Yeah. So in that scenario, I see Georgia at 1. I see probably Ohio State at 2, Cincinnati at 3, Notre Dame at 4. In Notre Dame's perfect scenario.
Yeah.
Because I don't see – and I've had this conversation with a couple people before, whereas you look at it, right? Notre Dame, like you mentioned, their 1 loss on the season was against Cincinnati. Earlier in the season, Cincinnati, the first team to beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium in the last 4 years. Not a great stat if you're Georgia Tech. The one team, Cincinnati's the only team to beat Notre Dame at home in, almost a half decade.
Yeah.
So, however, Notre Dame, if you look at them now and you look at the way they played over the course of the last couple weeks, specifically after that Cincinnati game, Notre Dame is one of the most dangerous teams in college football right now. What they have done over this last 4 or 5 game stretch, and really from the entire season, is they have gotten better each and every week. This is a Notre Dame team that, in all of reality, after watching them against FSU, should have been a 3 or 4 loss team. Their offensive line was super shaky. The defense was giving up big play after big play after big play, which, again, was not something that people expected when they got Marcus Freeman from Cincinnati to lead that defense, right? So it was definitely a shaky start to the season. But now you look at it, right? They've won a game with 3 different quarterbacks, including a freshman, right? So they've played all 3 of their quarterbacks. All 3 have won a game. That Wisconsin win looks better and better each week, and they blew out Wisconsin in the 4th quarter. I think the final was 40-something to like 10. And Purdue win.
Was different. That game put a lot of notice on them.
100%. The defense came alive. That's when that defense really started to take a turn. And then you look after Purdue went on their streak of beating top 5 teams out of nowhere. Now that Purdue win looks better and better each week. But it's rough for Notre Dame because I genuinely feel like if Notre Dame played Cincinnati now, I don't think Cincinnati would stand a chance.
I think Cincinnati has. They're going to get shut out because they're not power.
Yeah. I think Cincinnati loses badly in the playoff if they make it.
They need to go to the Big 12 as fast enough. Big 12, Big 10. No, it's Big 12. Yeah. They need to go to Big 12 as fast as possible. I mean, they need to get in there and basically dominate. Like, you're going to have to get in there. You're going to have to win. Like, you can't go in there and have a bad season.
Yeah.
Now, losing Ritter, you're going to lose that run. He's going to go to the draft. And he's probably going to be a top pick. He's going to be one of the quarterbacks to go high. You're going to lose a lot of I think they're losing part of their defense, a lot of their defense. So you're losing guys where this year you would think, like, you made the New Year's Six Bowl last year. You played Georgia tough. You played Georgia probably, you gave Georgia probably best challenge.
Yeah.
Since, like, from that game to this year, you were the part of the game. So, I mean, the only way I see you guys doing it is that Michigan State and Ohio, I think they play this week, Michigan State and Ohio State.
Yeah.
If Michigan State wins that game, they'll be 10-1. And I think they're gonna, I think Michigan State has a way of sliding in. If they can beat Ohio State and Michigan, they'll have a way. They'll find a way of getting in. Well, they already beat Michigan. Yeah.
They already beat Michigan, but Michigan's ranked above them.
Yeah, which is so crazy. They're going to get. I think John Harbaugh has, so much in the board. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I think Michigan State's going to jump if they beat Ohio State.
Yeah, Michigan State will jump to that 4 spot.
Yeah, they're going to go to that 4 spot. And I just don't think Cincinnati's going to be able to get in. There'll be another New Year. They're going to go to another New Year's Six game. I think everybody knows that. But I think for them, they want to be in that top. I think that's their whole goal. But it's so hard to put them in.
It's tough. It's tough because that win at Notre Dame it's their only big win, right? But like I said, it's the only team to beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame in the last 4 years. So it is a big win. And it wasn't, I mean, if you watch the game, you know, it wasn't like a crazy blowout or it wasn't like, you know, a crazy scoreline, but Cincinnati owned Notre Dame that game from start to finish. Like their defense owned them. But I don't see – I think a lot of what happens in the playoff or who gets in, I think so much of it is going to ride on that SEC championship game because you figure if Alabama wins, Georgia, Alabama, they both get in.
Definitely.
But if Alabama loses, do you put in a 2-loss Alabama over an undefeated Cincinnati?
Last time Alabama was 2 losses. No, they didn't make it. I don't think they made it. They went to the Outback Bowl in a year.
Yeah, I don't think they made it. And you figure that's a different conversation if Alabama blows a game to another ranked team. But they lost to an unranked Texas A&M team.
Yeah. They lost to A&M.
Yeah, like it's not a good loss. But then again, you look at Oregon and you look at how the committee is putting so much on their win
in Ohio
State, right? But that team lost to Stanford, a bad Stanford team.
And lost in a bad way in Stanford.
Yep.
Really and truly.
Yep.
But they put so much on that Ohio State win. If Cincy wins out, you have to put them in. Like Marquis said, if they win out, they got to go. You have to put them in because they're gonna be. If you have Georgia and you have Cincinnati and they're both undefeated, you usually want that right matchup. And even if you put Cincy in the 4th spot, at least give them the respect of putting them in there. At least put them in there because they are undefeated. And I think everybody wants to see Georgia Cincinnati again because last year I was and it's funny because Georgia's basketball team was in Cincinnati and they started chanting, "Let's play football." So of course, that's I guess we're gonna be rivals with Cincinnati now. But the thing about it is, you gotta have a good Big Ten team. You're gonna have to. Every year you have to put one in. The one team that always gets left out is Pac-12. So in this case, you would have your SEC team, whoever wins Michigan State, like that Ohio, that 3-man battle there, they'll win that. They'll come in. They'll get in. Slowly but surely, Oklahoma State is creeping, and that's the crazy part. Because if Oklahoma State wins the Big 12, they don't have a quality win. I think that's
what are they? They're ranked number 9, right?
They're ranked number 9. So, and Baylor, the only thing about it is that conference just has to look strong all year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst part about them. But you're going to have you might get your Pac-12 with Oregon, unless Oregon blows it versus like Oregon State or they blow it in the Pac-12 championship, like you said, they'll make it. And then that 4th spot is open. Really and truly, I think let's say if Georgia, this is the scenario if Georgia wins. If Georgia loses, then you have 2 spots already playing.
That's the thing. That Cincinnati needs Bama to lose that. I think everybody that is not currently in the playoff is banking on they need Georgia to beat Alabama because I think everybody knows that the committee favors Alabama so much that even a 1-loss Alabama or a 2-loss a 1-loss Alabama team and a 1-loss Georgia team are guaranteed berths in the playoff.
And what Georgia did this year, historically, they're going to put them in. They like the defense history. Like they're going to, if Georgia even goes to the championship, even if we get blown out, we're probably still.
And Ohio State, I think a lot rides on how those next 2 games go. Which Ohio State team do you get? You know what I mean? Do you get the team that was kind of struggling earlier in the year, one that lost to Oregon at home? Or do you get the Ohio State of late that's kind of dominated on offense and defense?
That's the part about that. Like, do you get the C.J. Stroud that's what he is now, or do you get the first couple games he did?
Yeah.
And that's the thing what I was telling you. And people are gonna be so good. And then I was like, bro, like it was the same thing with Sam Howell. And Marquis was here when I talked about Sam. I said Sam is not that great. Like they gave him a lot of hype, and that's why Vegas. That's the thing with Vegas. Everybody was looking at like, why is Sam Howell so low on Vegas? Because he wasn't that strong of a quarterback. He had a great couple of games last year. Oh, he's the he had two of the best running backs in the college.
Oh yeah.
Like, what do you expect from him? He's going to have a good passing game when all he has to do is play action.
And he had a good stretch. You got to look at when that stretch was toward the end of the season when he really there was a lot of end of the season hype, right? Because you have a good end of the season, and that's what's kind of on people's mind for the next 3-4 months until you hop into the next season. That's the last part they saw about you.
Yeah, that's the word. It's a lot of recency bias when they go into the next
Yeah.
Like, nobody was expecting Jordan Davis to be what he was. Let's be honest. Nobody expected Jordan Davis to be the most dominant. One of the really the most dominant nose guard in college football right now.
Yeah.
I mean, like 4 years ago, he came here as I think he was actually shorter when he got. He actually grew, and he got big. And he was a 3-star. That's why I say, like, the star ranking of you at this point, he was a 3-star. And Kirby made him who he is now. And that defense is just built around him. Like the Heat gets one-on-one anytime he wins. Because of you got linebackers, blitzing, D-line, you got two. Everybody talks about how fast we are. I think that's the scary part about Georgia. It's like everybody's man, Georgia's just fast. That's just how we built this team. That's the thing with Kirby. And people like to say Kirby can't develop talent.
Oh yeah.
But Marquis, if sometimes makes the playoffs, do they extend the playoffs to 12? I would want them to. I would enjoy a longer playoffs. Like,
I think everybody would. I think if you extend it to 12, like the whole college football season, right, is based off the fact that you either go undefeated or you're a one-loss team. And you can see with Cincinnati right now, you could be undefeated, have one of the biggest wins of the entire season and still not make it because of the bias that you're not in the Power 5.
Yeah.
So I think a 12-team playoff, the whole thing with college football is there's parity, right? Anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday. So why not bring that into the playoffs, right? You got those 1 through 12. You give the first 4 teams a bye, and you let the next 8 beat it out of one another, and then those top 4 get a chance to play these. Like, I think everybody wins, right? College football loves it. The NCAA loves it. They make more money. These bowl games, you're getting more ratings on television because these games mean more. These games are all sellouts. Like, I think everybody wins in a 12-team playoff.
Everybody wins. Like, let's think about that now. So you get the 4 teams off. You have Cincinnati versus Ole Miss, Michigan versus Baylor, Michigan State versus Wake Forest, and Notre Dame versus Ole Miss. If we were having 12-team playoff, that'd be the first round.
Those are great games.
Those are all great games. Like Cincinnati. First off, Cincinnati versus Ole Miss would be amazing. Like, like that's the thing about it. That everybody wins in this scenario of more teams. This is the thing. It's really 3 years. More teams, more money, more success. Like, and this is another thing. I watched Monty said this. Like, man, just go back to the BCS championship game. I said, no. I said, you're losing more money going back to the one championship game. Like, going off the 8 poll. Like, no, 8 poll right now, we would have Georgia versus Alabama. Nobody wants that.
No, because they're going to play an SEC championship.
Yeah. You're going to really watch the ACC. You're going to watch the ACC. Unless you drop us. That's why these championship games mean so much. At first, you would be like, oh, this team is going to be number 2. Locked in, they're going to be in the BCS game. Now, you lose your chance. You can drop again. And that's the crazy part about it. That's why I like the board. I just don't like the board bias. Because they can rise at some point. They need to bring in people from every conference. Be like, sit here and let's really make a plan. Because your Alabama bias horrible. You can tell it is. Like, you can see the bias. They want Alabama. Like, Alabama should be number 2.
No, not at all. But you see that, like, the way the playoff is now, I feel like the only people that lose, right, with an expanded playoff, the only people that lose are the Alabamas and the Georgias, right? The teams that are constantly every year, year in and year out, making the college football playoff. Those are the teams that lose in an expanded playoff because, okay, now not only do they have to play that extra game, but now, okay, all these other teams have the potential to upset, a number 2 Alabama or a number 1 Georgia because the playoff has more teams.
Yeah. And but that's not even really like as you're a power team, I feel like you should be like we can beat anybody. Like you're Kirby's audio in the locker room. That man was like, we are the best in that country.
Yeah.
Because that's the confidence you have to have. And that's the thing about this team. We know we're good. That's the thing about Georgia. I feel like this. Georgia knows they're good. So I want to get into this. I have to be one of the few that doesn't want to explain because the season less than 4 gets in like a 2 or 3 loss team to get in. I think they'll change the rankings though. I think they have to change the rankings around about who gets it, who doesn't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I see, like, I've gotten that opinion before of a 2 or 3 loss team, shouldn't get in. But I think, the way I look at it, right? So, like, I'm big on the NFL, right? So what I love about the NFL and that I think college football could adopt a little bit is the fact that the best team isn't always going to win the championship, right? If that makes sense. It's about, and it's cliche, you hear coaches say it all the time, but it's about going 1-0 every single week, right? So in the case of an expanded college football playoff, the way the season works is these teams get better and better as the season goes on, or at least that's how it should be, right? Like I said earlier, like a Notre Dame team now would beat the Cincinnati team as it is now, whereas Cincinnati was the better team at the start of the season. So I feel like by making it only a 4-team playoff, you're almost penalizing a team for improving as the season goes on, right? Because you figure if Notre Dame loses to Cincinnati this week, let's say Cincinnati Notre Dame play this week, Notre Dame has no chance of getting in, right? If both teams are undefeated going into this game this week, whichever team loses, their hopes are gone. So I feel like, whereas if it was a 12-team playoff or a 10-team playoff, you're not penalizing a team for losing that one game. I feel like it should be about the entire body of work, not just the fact that, hey, guess what? Alabama blew one game against Texas A&M. Your entire season is over because you had a bad Saturday.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing with like I said, look at 12. This is a fun. There's only two lost teams in the 12. Baylor and the Opens. So you're gonna have mostly one lost teams. So my thing is, okay, we watched that game. You're gonna watch all these games.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna watch all of these. There's not gonna be a game you're gonna be like, I'm gonna watch Cincinnati versus Ole Miss. You're gonna want to watch that game because no matter who plays these games, they're going against the next time. And one of those 4 might be your thing. So might be the team you follow. And that's the thing with Georgia. Like, so say, since like Ole Miss, they would play Georgia next. Like that would be the thing for it. Like that's the whole thing about it. It's like it's fun. It's a fun experience. Like let's say Tampa wasn't the number one. Let's say Tampa played the wild card last year. So they weren't even the number 1 seed. And look, they won a championship. It doesn't matter who's the top because Green Bay was number 1. It does not matter who your number 1 seed is. Like Georgia can lose at any point.
Yeah. We
don't know. Like last week, Tennessee was a really tough game. We ended up blowing them out towards the end, but the first half was really tough.
Yeah.
So you just never know. Like it doesn't, and you never know what quarterback problems and stuff like that. I hope they extend the playoff because the Group 5 conference service has been. They do. I don't think they're gonna give it to them though.
if Cincinnati, I think college football is going to get a rude awakening this season if Cincinnati does make the playoff. Because, yes, Cincinnati beat, again, I go back to the Notre Dame game, right? Their only big win really of the season. Yes, they beat Notre Dame at home. Cincinnati, if they play, and this is somebody who's watched Cincinnati in person against a good team. If Cincinnati were to play Alabama, if they were to play Georgia, if they were to play Ohio State, Cincinnati would lose by 20-plus points. I mean, you've seen the way they've played just over the last couple weeks against not really good teams. That Navy game was a one-touchdown game. And for a while, Navy had a chance to go and win that football game. And again, I watched Notre Dame play Navy. That wasn't like Notre Dame dominated that game. Like, yes, it was 17-6 going into the fourth, but like two very different ways of beating Navy. And it looked like Cincinnati was playing to not lose as much as they were to playing to win. Right. So if they were to go play a Georgia would dominate that game. If they were to go play Alabama would dominate that game. And I think it goes back to years and years ago, right, where you had an undefeated UCF, right, that claimed themselves as national champions because they were undefeated. Okay, well, go play Georgia. Go play Alabama. It wouldn't be a game.
Yeah, they beat Auburn. Remember, they beat Auburn. That was their big. They beat Auburn. But even still, Auburn wasn't a powerhouse.
Yeah. Like, well, when you saw them, you saw UCF play. They played LSU in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah,
not that undefeated season, but I believe a couple of years. It was Joe Burrow's second to last year at LSU, and I mean, like you're just not going to win those games, man. Like, yes, you go undefeated against the competition that you're playing, but when you step up against some of these guys that are, guys that are going to be playing on Sundays in a year from now. It's just a completely different ball game.
Yeah. So you say 6. I think my biggest pool would be 8. I like 12 because of the fun, but if we're gonna go big pool, if you go 8, you said 6. 6 is just I don't know. I like 6. Like what basketball is 8, so it would be 8 like the NBA. That's 8. And really and truly, let's do it like let's say they do it like the NBA. And they give you the rule this year where they have you have to fight for the 7 to 8 seed, basically. So, well, it's really 8 now. But let's say you got to fight for the 8 seed. So you would go. Let's say, I'll say 7 to 8. So you'll have Notre Dame, Michigan. You have Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Wake Forest. So whoever wins the Michigan State Notre Dame game would get the 7 seed. Whoever wins Oklahoma State, Wake Forest. And then they'd have to go play whoever lost the Michigan State. That would be fun.
Yeah.
That gives you more complication, but that's still a fun, it's a still fun expansion. So
yeah.
I want to ask you this question. You guys are independent, but you play ACC schedule basically. How do you feel about all these teams switching? I've asked most of my guests that. And, we have the Big 12 getting, a couple of teams. We have the ACC, basically, that playing. They're getting a whole bunch of teams to come in. It's an American conference. They're getting a whole bunch of things. Like everybody's getting bigger, and everybody's trying to get more teams to try to compete, to keep their name basically on the board. So how do you feel about that?
Personally, I think some of the teams switching is funny. You look at Texas, for example, like who Texas is not a good team this year. They weren't a good team last year. And now they want to go sign up to play these giants every single year. Like they're just going to lose. Like you lose in your conference now. Why would you want to go to the SEC and lose over there in a more embarrassing fashion? However, like I said, I'm big on the NFL. I like the way the NFL is structured. I personally wouldn't mind seeing, as opposed to Power 5 conferences, if it was split into a similar way the NFL does it, and it was just split between 2 giant conferences, right? I think that way there is no more Group of 5, Power 5. It's everybody's playing everybody. If you're D1, you schedule your games as you go, right? You'll get this teams this year, those teams next year, this year, whatever. And I think that, I mean, if you want to see, it rules out like so much of the debate of, oh, you didn't play this team, or you don't have a quality win here. You don't have a quality win here. Like, this allows these teams to, okay, you put up or shut up. Texas, you want to go play Alabama? Schedule that game and go play them. Like, if you lose, you lose. And that's that. It's the best teams are going to win each Saturday. So I don't think that'll ever happen because there is so much involved financially with these conferences as that comment comes up. So, yeah, there's so much money involved between the conferences, between the NCAA, and quite frankly, the travel for a lot of it for these specific universities, right, would be such a hassle. But I think if you're really trying to get into, okay, every year we want the best 4 teams to be in the college football playoff, I think this is how you do it. You allow D1 teams straight up to play the best D1 teams, and that's that. Although I do think it is funny, like I mentioned earlier, that Texas wants to go play in the SEC and lose to Alabama and Georgia every year.
Every year. And Oklahoma's coming too. So, it's funny because, like, Oklahoma fans don't like Georgia fans on Twitter, but it's just like, what do we have against y'all? We beat y'all in the Rose Bowl. We didn't do anything else to you.
They want to lose. They're signing up to lose is what they want. They want at least one loss every year.
Any of these plays, any of these schools, and they just want to come at us. Like, you already did that SEC. Like, and it's funny because I think we were talking about realignment. I was talking about realignment when the SEC guys, we were like, one of these teams might have to come to the East.
Yeah.
And I pray it's Texas. I just want Texas to play Texas every year. Like, I just want that every year. Oklahoma would be fun too because let's think about it. Now they're saying Lincoln Riley wants to go. They're saying he might do LSU, and I'm just like, he's gonna get killed.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can't run RPO.
No.
Really and truly in the SEC.
No.
And that's the same thing at Mississippi State with I can't even think of the coach's name. The one that came from Washington State, he runs air raid. Air raid can work a little bit, but you're not going to be able to run RPO. Like, you're going to get killed. Every team is running RPO. I mean, Arkansas does it. Arkansas tried to run RPO versus Georgia. We saw the result of that. You might get a couple breakaway plays, but the defense in SEC is too bad.
Oh, yeah. SEC defenses are, I mean, they're the best in the country. So You're not gonna, those crazy plays that go for 80-yard touchdowns, 70-yard touchdowns normally in the Big 10 or the Big 12 or in the ACC, you don't see them happening in the SEC unless they're done by Alabama or they're done by Georgia. Like, those things just don't happen. Although I would, in terms of conferences, right, the opinion here is very mixed of people wanting to see Notre Dame in a conference, not wanting to see in a conference. I personally, you mentioned Notre Dame plays pretty much an ACC schedule anyways. Yeah. I would personally love to see Notre Dame in a conference because, especially when in an expanded playoff, right? Notre Dame is hurt in an expanded playoff if it only goes to 6 or 8 because you figure every Power 5 conference is going to get a team, right? Yeah. So if they only expand the playoff to 6, that means Notre Dame can never get a spot above 6. Yeah. Right. So Notre Dame has screwed themselves by being an independent every year because you got the ACC, SEC, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, all get a bid. That leaves Notre Dame and every other big school in the nation vying for one spot, which that means you figure any other year, Georgia, Alabama, that's a spot right there. That means Notre Dame's got to be better than Georgia or Alabama. Then you look at the Big 10, you've got Ohio State. That means Notre Dame's got to be better than Michigan State and Michigan. And that's not even concerning every couple of years, Oregon is great for no reason. So Notre Dame is hurt by being an independent in a 16 playoff.
Yeah. And that's why I said 8 would be fun. That's why I said the 8 with the playoff for 7 through 8. To get those bids would be fun. I can see that. I can see Oklahoma being because they are. It just depends. It really just depends on how they. It's really more money wise. Like, do you want to go play Alabama or do you want to go play Georgia? That's probably what they're gonna ask you. You want the Georgia money, you want Alabama, and whoever gets first bid, because you're thinking about it, if you play Alabama, you're gonna get sold out.
Yeah.
Home or away.
Yep.
But we played in South Bend.
Yeah, in South Bend.
Basically, almost built that stadium out. Like we will travel because, and that game was huge, bro. That game got us into the one the big championship game to beat you guys. And then the next year we all came here. And if you I look at the Georgia game here, that was at the we bricked up the stadium. Like we expanded it. And so you guys got the first home game with the expanded dome with all the lights. It was just like, yeah, that's
it's different, man. Football on this side of the country is different. It's like I went to college at Arizona State, right? So I'm used to watching Pac-12, which is, in my personal opinion, the Pac-12 when it comes to football is just a worse Big Ten. Everybody beats everybody on any given Saturday, and that's just how it goes. But going to Arizona State football games, Stanford, UCLA, USC, watching all those teams play, and then coming out here and watching Notre Dame every Saturday. And then even these road games, right? We went to Virginia Tech. We saw, Enter Sandman, or we saw Notre Dame play Wisconsin at Soldier Field where they did jump around, or at FSU, with the tomahawk chop. Like, they just do football different on this side of the country. Yeah.
And I can see that. I think they should. I didn't think about that. You guys should do the ACC finally like this.
It's money, man. It's money. They got those NBC TV deals that they pay them a lot more than the ACC would pay them. And they don't got to worry. They can go ahead and do kind of whatever they want without all the repercussions of being in the ACC, right? Like, you figure whoever wins the ACC championship is a guaranteed bid, or most years would be a guaranteed bid to get into the playoff, right? Whereas if you lose that game, odds are you're not going to get in. Notre Dame doesn't have to worry every year about winning a conference championship, right? So you saw crazy last year. They went into the ACC championship, lost that game, and still managed to get in the playoff. But I don't think that happened. Obviously that doesn't happen every year. So I think for Notre Dame to join a conference, there has to be a unfortunate expansion in the playoff where it is only a 6-team expansion. Yeah. That's the only way I see Notre Dame joining a conference in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, thank you for coming on. We're going to end it here. I did want to stop. I like that comment. But yeah, these players, these group of five they can't recruit.
Yeah.
That's brothers power. Like, that's just not a thing. Like, you're not going to. If you got a group of five, you get like your one SEC offer, you're going to go to the SEC.
Yeah.
No matter if you get play time or not, you're going to want to go to the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and shout yourself out to people that can find you.
Say that one more time.
Shout yourself out. Just tell people where they can find you.
For some reason, I can't hear you, boss.
Can you hear me?
A little bit better.
Hello?
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I was saying, just tell people where they can find you. And, basically, where they can find you on Twitter, Facebook, anything like that.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter just at Anthony_Totri, and then same thing with Instagram, Facebook, kind of all that stuff. And obviously have everything related to Notre Dame, not only this weekend against Georgia Tech, but, for the rest of the season if anyone's interested.
Yeah, you guys know we got a game tonight, a couple hours. The Patriots tonight. Thank you guys for keeping Wallace. Thank you guys for coming in. Joshua, thank you for coming in. Thank you guys for coming in. Like I said, you know where to find me at Taro ATL on Twitter. Follow FILA _SP on Twitter as well. Follow us on Facebook, Podcast. That's our page that we have access to. Follow me on Facebook at TJ Monday. Thank you guys. Thank you again, Anthony, for coming on. Thank you guys for watching. Get out of here.